Little example here of maybe debunking the myth of AI removing the author from creating papers or documents or whatever it might be, or writing a book. Here, for example, just to get you familiar with this concept, is a paper that I wrote that is a series of machine learning models that are based on observations that I've made while watching baseball. I did a lot of work in the machine learning space for NFL machine learning models and had some success there. And as a big baseball fan, I watch a lot of baseball. And over the years, probably over 5, 6, 7 years or so, I came up with all these different ideas as to what might be some interesting machine learning models that could evaluate and then do like player predictions, whether it be for, who knows, gambling or fantasy baseball or something like that. I came up with a whole bunch of them, and you see them listed here. And I wrote a little conclusion here, creating the machine learning models as a complex task, da 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 da. Then I actually dove a lot deeper into each one of the models. I came up with a name for each one. You'll see here, these are just the ones that are outlined above in a summary. I get, a couple different names so I can refer to the model specifically. And then I go into the creation of the model, talking about some of the data that we'd be using. What do you do when the data set is gathered, sort of the steps that you can see here, and some discussion on machine learning models in general. And then finally kind of wrapping things up. And I rinse and repeat, and I go through each one of these. And I'm pretty proud of these ideas. I look forward to creating the models. But, of course, in order to create them, I also wanted to have a little bit of a breakdown of what maybe the code might be. But before we do that, to kind of figure out how to code a model, I have to outline what the features and the targets would be for each one of these. So I outlined here, this is just kind of a comma delimited list rather than an array or breakdown. These are the features for the first model, and then the target for that model. And then features, target, so on and so on. Most of them are outcome of the at-bat or outcome of the game, that kind of thing. But you get the general idea. Then, now that I've got my ideas summarized, I can then, and I have my model features and target, I go into the instructions on how to create each one of these models. So I go through step-by-step instructions. They're pretty much, rinse and repeat as they would be. And of course, I have the, features and targets already determined. So once I get all that, now I need some code. So, traditional machine learning model code and is, Python, and, here's a specific tool that's very popular. So I wrote a little bit of that out. But, I kind of like looking at code as you would see it inside your code editor. So here's the commented version of the code, and then some references to some of the data that I mentioned above, and some of the way that this should be coded so that the machine learning model makes sense. And of course, because I need data, I actually came up with a example data set. It's not real data. You see that this is John Doe, Jane Doe, Mike Smith. But I wanted to show what the structure of it would look like. So if I want to go collect this data or go to a service to gather this data, I would know what format I need, and then I just define what the data set is. And I, make a little disclaimer here at the end. So I'm very proud of this paper. And, for years and years and years, I was gathering all this information. So the reveal here is, of course, this is what I wrote. I had a notes app. This is pretty much it. Notes app on my iPhone, or actually on my iPad, and probably over the course of, I think it was like 4 or 5 years, I was just making notes. I would just be watching a baseball game and go, oh, what would be a good model is this. And I just make a couple of notes. Another model, this, and so on. So how did I do this? Well, you can probably imagine I used chatgpt to create this, but I wanted to impress upon everyone how important this tool can be when actually writing, and how much the author is actually involved. So let's take a look. So you'll see here that I literally copied and pasted in the values that you saw before, and a little bit of some of the description. It's all from the document that you just saw there. And one of the things I like doing is just hitting enter after I enter data in, or after I put a statement in, specifically in the case of notes like this or data sets inside ChatGPT, because what I want to do is make sure that ChatGPT understands what I just did. So here it summarizes all my 9 different models. And, this could be the whole paper right here, creating the machine learning model, so on and so on. So it looks like it understands me. So then I come back and I say, well, let's expound upon the one model, right? So I actually, that's this first model that you see here. batter versus pitcher, second, third time around in the order. So really, I'm rinsing and repeating, expound upon this concept, so on and so on. Now what I do is I go in and I say, well, give me a name for this model and expound upon the concept. So this is where I was getting the names of the models and expounding upon it at the same time. And then I copy and paste these back into my document. I do that, 8 or 9 times until finally I have all of them defined. And then now I say, break down the ideal features and targets for each model. And you can imagine here, create each of these models in Python. It gave me instructions instead, so that's kind of where I went with that direction. And here's a little pro tip. You'll notice sometimes that in ChatGPT, it just stops responding. Rather than regenerate a response, I just hit type the words continue, and of course it continues. So here's all the breakdowns, and then as is the case with ChatGPT and other types of code, I say write Python code for each model. So you can see here it says providing the Python code would require a lot of context. So fair enough. So I just said, in the first model here, what might be some good starting point code for me? And did the same thing with the other models. So here's the code. You can simply copy this, bring this into a text editor. All these are all the different code that you need here. So, and then I said, let's look at what a sample data set of just the one model might look like. And then it has a data dictionary listed here. So certainly I had a tremendous amount of help. The nice thing is it took about 4 or 5 years to put all those notes down. Never got around to writing these things. And I was able to write this paper in about 25, 30 minutes, knowing what prompts I wanted to ask it and what I was trying to achieve with the paper itself. So I would submit this for consideration to say, this can unblock you from a writer, whether it's creative or technical, or statistical writing like this one. And really, once you're engaged in that process, you can vet out whether or not the concepts make sense, whether or not it's tracking and understanding what you're saying, and ultimately come up with a great output. And now, frankly, I am motivated to go do something with this document because I was actually able to take it from, something that sat around on my phone to an actual paper that I could actually go start modeling. So I think this is an interesting way to look at writing using ChatGPT.